countdown begin. The countdown begin.
Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the 100 Fantasy Football channel, where I not only give you the best analysis so you can succeed in fantasy football, but the mission of this channel is to bring connection and community, and so that way we can have purposeful community within this very passionate and very amazing community that is fantasy football. And if we're meeting for the first time, my name is Ivan Herrera. Welcome. And I would be really appreciative if you hit that like button, and also if you hit that subscribe button, so that way you are always up to date whenever I drop a video or whenever I go live. I drop videos usually on Sundays. I go live on Saturdays, so that way you're prepared for the week. Today we're going to be going over a lot of cool things. We're going to be going over some of the injuries that have taken place, predominantly with that featuring Christian McCaffrey, who is by far the best fantasy football player that we've had for the last couple years. We're going to go over some of the other injuries like Russell Wilson and everything like that, and what that means to the Seattle pass catchers. And then we're also going to go over one of my hot takes about why I think you should invest in running back handcuffs. And from there, we're going to go also, of course, through some must-starts that I believe are going to do really, really well going into week 6. So whether you're playing season log or you are playing cash games, these players should help you out to really maximize on your winnings in week 6. So let me go ahead and get the show breakdown going real quick. I wasn't able to update it, so I'm going to update it right now with the newest one. So let me do that really, really fast. Hold on. Here we go. You still have the old one. I wasn't able to get to doing the new one, so here it is. So open and save. Okay, cool. So now you're seeing the new breakdown for the week. So just like I said, we're going to be going over the injuries, cap or no cap, one of my favorite segments that we get into, the week 6 players that I love, and then of course we're going to open it up for some Q&A. So if you have any questions, by all means, please put your questions in the comments. And I hope everyone's enjoying their Saturday. I've been having a pretty smooth day today. I went to Costco earlier with the family, and you know what's funny? I didn't realize how cheap the Costco food court is. After we went shopping to get groceries, I got my little one, the 2 sundaes, a smoothie, 2 churros, and I think that was it. So it was a smoothie, two ice cream sundaes, 2 churros, and no, it's me and my wife and 2 little ones, and that only came out to $11. So winning so far on my Saturday. It was a really good time. Spent some family time, and also Groupon is extremely clutch. So I promise you, we're gonna get into some football right now. But we go to this diner that's here local in Southern California, and it's called Kickback Jacks. And Groupon has this pretty awesome voucher where if you pay $30 for the voucher, it covers $48. So you basically get a dish of $18 for free when you pay $30. So we did that this morning. So yeah, just let me know how your Saturday's going. I want to make sure that we're sending all good vibrations through the weekend, so that way it can hopefully translate to fantasy football success. So let's go ahead and get into the first segment. As always, is going to be going over injuries, and unfortunately, we have some big names this week. One of the biggest ones, of course, is Christian McCaffrey. He was placed on the IR earlier in the week, which means that Chuba Hubbard is going to be getting the workload for the next 3 weeks guaranteed. Carolina apparently wasn't too comfortable with how Christian McCaffrey was progressing in his injury, so we are not going to be able to see the fantasy football superstar for the next 3 weeks. Chris Carson from the Seattle Seahawks, running back, was also placed on the IR. Expect running back Alex Collins to continue to get the workload in his absence. The thing about Alex Collins is he, in week 4 and week 5, he had 10 attempts in week 4. He had 15 in week 5. In each of those starts, he had 2 receptions. I think he's a poor man's Chris Carson because he is still somewhat involved there. I don't think he's one of those plug and play handcuffs, but expect touches to be there. So if you're looking for a desperate flex play, Alex Collins will be that guy for you, with Chris Carson being out for at least 3 weeks. We also saw teammate quarterback Russell Wilson placed on the IR with that injured right finger that he had. It was the right middle finger. So he's going to be gone for a bit. Reports were initially that it could be a 4 to 8 week injury. So Seattle, of course, naturally would put him on the IR, which puts him out for at least 3 weeks, which will be the first time in Russell Wilson's career where he's not going to be under center for the Seattle Seahawks, breaking a very long and impressive streak. Hey, what's up, Luke? Good to see you on here, man. Do you follow MLB? Yeah, I was watching the Dodgers right now, dude. So I was really trying to stay focused doing my research, but then also following. Hopefully you're not a Atlanta fan, because that would be a little awkward. But and then of course with that, guys, let's go into the rest of the injuries. Clyde Edwards-Helaire from the Kansas City Chiefs was also placed on the IR. He's going to be out for, of course, also 3 weeks with that knee injury. It was rough too, because for those of us that were looking, so just to give you guys full context on Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I was actually looking for him as a buy low option in week 2, just because I still love the offense that he's in. I love, of course, the skill set, and I'm just a big fan of Andy Reid and how he utilizes running backs. And of course, Week 3 and Week 4, he puts up over 100 yards, and now we have this unfortunate injury where he's going to be sidelined for a bit. But if you're still looking for him, be sure to go ahead and invest in him. I think he's still someone that will be able to add value to your roster. And this one hurt for me. This next injury is Nick Chubb. He's out with a calf injury. Now, the one roster I do have Nick Chubb in, I did invest in Kareem Hunt. I was able to trade Tony Pollard after his huge explosion, and I got Kareem Hunt on a very good deal. So I traded Tony Pollard, and I forget who else. It was a package deal, but I got Kareem Hunt in the mix. So Kareem Hunt, during his absence of Nick Chubb, will be a top 5 play, just because he's already so utilized. He's a very strong flex play, even with Nick Chubb in the lineup. And I think you're going to see big plays out of him in Nick Chubb's absence. Reports were only saying that it was a very minor calf injury, so we don't expect the injury to be ongoing. But just in case, if you are a Nick Chubb owner, be ready to potentially, see him gone for the next 2 weeks. But hopefully it'll be just this week. And then lastly, the one that was really getting me nervous, because I have a lot of shares of this player, is Terry McLaurin. He was questionable all throughout the week, but thankfully they actually were saying today, ESPN's John Keim had reported that Terry McLaurin was quote unquote feeling good on Saturday after on Friday Coach Ron Rivera had sat him out because of what he calls an abundance of caution. But thankfully today all that was essentially all removed, with reports coming out that he's doing fine. So that's always good to hear. Let's get here. Thanks for responding. Keep going. Oh, thanks, man. Yeah, you know what? I mean, I do all this as like a baseline of what I want to cover, but the main thing is I love the community more than anything else. So, Luke, if you have any questions, any roster situations that you're stuck on, by all means, send them over. I will prioritize that first any time of the week, because this channel is meant to bring purposeful community to a passionate industry, which is fantasy football. So, if you have any questions, or if you know anyone that has any questions, by all means, send them over. I have Nick Chubb. It's going to be interesting. Yeah, it is. I have him in one team, but that's why I wanted to make sure I had Kareem Hunt. I'm pro getting the handcuff of an elite running back, even if the running back isn't on my team, which actually is a perfect segue into this week's cap or no cap. And if you are brand new to cap or no cap, what this basically means is this segment is I take a whether it's a hot take or not, I go over a very controversial topic, and I determine whether or not you should, if it's cap or no cap. So we'll go ahead and get into it this week as it revolves around handcuffs. So with that, let me go ahead and cue up the intro for cap or no cap, and we'll get into it. Okay, so with all the injuries that we're seeing right now with some of the elite running backs in the NFL, like Christian McCaffrey, like we saw last week with Dalvin Cook, and now what we're seeing even with Nick Chubb, I believe it is so essential to make sure that you invest in handcuffs. So today's statement is, does having a handcuff, so here, rather, I'll frame it like this. Even though Cliff is out. Oh, no, yeah, actually, real quick. Luke James, should I start Kyler even though Cliff is out? Yeah, you're going to be fine. The matchups are not going to be that bad going into week 6 for Arizona. Kyler Murray is going to be heavily involved. He brings you value in the passing game as well as in the rushing. So I would be fine. I have Kyler in actually a league of my the home league that I host in the 100 league. He's my quarterback. Got him in a keeper. He has so many weapons. So he had a very disappointing week 5. Only putting up 13 points, but I think he'll have a huge bounce back week. I had some stats on Kyler I wanted to share earlier, but let me at least pull up to see what I have here. So here we go. So with Kyler Murray, they're going up against Cleveland. They're a pretty underrated defense, but 29th against the quarterback in fantasy, and I think it's just a big week with all the weapons that they have. I expect the bounce back for DeAndre Hopkins as well, even though the Cleveland secondary is pretty solid. But I would go with Kyler with full confidence. So let me go ahead and queue up, because I messed up cap or no cap again, so sorry Luke if you're gonna have to bear to see this again, but let me go ahead and do the intro for cap or no cap, and we're gonna get into it one more. So today's cap or no cap is, do running back handcuffs win your league? No cap, without question. A handcuff can determine the success of your fantasy football season. Now, before you start to, have your opinion, just let me explain it real quick. So when I say handcuff, you have essentially the insurance policy of one of the elite running backs. So if you have Christian McCaffrey, one would assume that you would have Chuba Hubbard. He would be the handcuff. If you have Dalvin Cook, you would have Alexander Madison. He is the handcuff. And same thing goes for Ezekiel Elliott and Tony Pollard. And then lastly, one of the other ones that I like to go over is DeAndre Swift with Jamal Williams. Now, here are the stats that I think are really intriguing that make this case. Even if you don't own those elite running backs, I always find it best to invest in the handcuff of those running backs, because if anything were to happen to like what we're seeing right now with Christian McCaffrey, who's going to be out for another 3 weeks on top of what he's already missed, Chuba Hubbard's going to see a lot of volume. And in those games that we've seen Chuba Hubbard fill in for Christian McCaffrey, we've seen the following. He's had 14 plus touches in each game filling in for CMC. He had 29 touches last week. So volume is king in fantasy. And that's why if you have, say for example, say if your running backs are completely healthy. So for instance, I have Joe Mixon and I have Darrell Henderson. Both of them are healthy this week. But guess what? I also have Chuba Hubbard, and I also have the guy who's filling in, Alexander Madison. I have both of them. So if anything were to happen, I would have essentially 4 top 5 running backs in my starting lineup. So that's why I'm pro of that. But let's go ahead and go even deeper with these numbers. So for example, with Dalvin Cook, Alexander Madison filled in for him twice to start for him when he was injured. And in both games, he had 25 or more carries when filling in for Dalvin Cook. And in both games, he had over 20 fantasy points. So, and then also when we look at Ezekiel Elliott, he hasn't been injured this year, but just to show you how Tony Pollard is being utilized in that Dallas offense, Zeke has yet to miss any games, right? But Pollard is averaging 12.6 touches per game. And if anything were to happen to Zeke, with that kind of volume already, with Zeke in the lineup, he will be a top 5 play without a question. So, and then the last one I wanted to go over was DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams. So Jamal Williams has already shown that he can be a top 5 talent based on what we saw in week 1. But so far in the season, he's averaging 14 touches a game. That's great workload right there for any fantasy player. And if anything were to happen to DeAndre Swift, we know that Jamal Williams is going to be utilized. So I say invest in handcuffs. They can actually be the X factor to win your league, even if you don't own the primary running back of that offense. So invest in handcuffs because they could win your season. So there we go with that. But now we're going to go ahead to get into some of the players I love going into week number 6. The first one I want to go over is going to be Jalen Waddle going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the thing is, we know that Tua Tagovailoa is back from the rib injury that he suffered in week 2, and I believe that this brings not only stability, but will also make sure that you don't feel as nervous going with Jalen Waddle into week 6. Look, when we look any further with the matchup, Jacksonville has given up the 7th most yards to wide receivers in fantasy football so far in 2021, and I believe that with the target share as well as that chemistry that he has with Tua, you can expect Jalen Waddle to be a solid flex play or even a borderline wide receiver 2 in week number 6. The next player I want to go over is quarterback Taylor Heinicke from the Washington football team. He's going up against the elite Kansas City Chiefs. We know that the Kansas City Chiefs do a lot of things well on offense. So far, we have seen that their defense has struggled in fantasy with the quarterback. Just to give you guys some context, they have allowed the most fantasy points to quarterbacks in 2021, 5th most yards allowed to quarterbacks, and they've allowed also the 9th most passing touchdowns in 2021. So expect Taylor Heinicke to explode in week number 6. So far this season, in 2 matchups where he's had favorable matchups versus the New York Giants, he put up 24 points. I said also in week number 4 that he was going to explode versus the Atlanta Falcons. He did that by putting up 33.9 points in that game. In the last 3 games, he's also shown that he has value with his legs. He's averaged 6 rushing attempts for about 34.6 yards in that time. And during that tenure, he's been a top 12 quarterback. So I expect Taylor Heinicke to continue that, especially if Terry McLaurin is going to be a healthy start. You should feel very confident going with Tyler Heinicke being your starting quarterback in week number 6. Now, I have 2 more players I want to go over, and that's going to be Darrell Henderson out of the New York Giants. Darrell Henderson is going up against the New York Giants, who are a bottom 10 defense, going up against the fantasy running backs this season. And in 4 starts, Henderson has shown his volume. And this is kind of like one of the things that makes him and even players like Chase Edmonds really valuable, because both of those players got me really nervous because of their size. But you're seeing that their usage, because of their pass catching ability, is just making them blossom in fantasy so far. And in his last 4 starts, he's averaged 18 touches a game game, and within those starts, he's had at least 14 or more points in those starts. So Darrell Henderson's one of those guys that volume just continues to be one of the things that really adds value to him, and I expect that to continue going up against a favorable matchup with the New York Giants. So be sure to start Darrell Henderson with confidence going into week number 6. Now, one of the players that I've absolutely been infatuated with all offseason, as well as now going into this season, is Michael Pittman Jr. He's going up against the Houston Texans, who have been pretty bad versus wide receivers. They're averaging the most points allowed in fantasy football to wide receivers, and then on top of that, Pittman is clearly the number one there in Houston. Carson Wentz and him have had a phenomenal connection. One of the main calls that I had this offseason was I thought Michael Pittman Jr. was going to have a great year, just because I believe Frank Reich, the head coach of the Colts, is utilizing him almost very similar to how he used Alshon Jeffrey back in 2017. And for those of you that are history buffs like myself, that was a season that Carson Wentz went completely off. He was, during that time, Alshon Jeffrey was wide receiver 17. No, I'm sorry, Alshon Jeffrey was wide receiver 17 that season, and I believe that Michael Pittman Jr. Has shown that he can take a lot of a target share and do well with it. For example, Pittman Jr. has had 6 or more targets in 4 straight games. During that time, he's been wide receiver 14. So he's one of those guys that continues to get overlooked, and I don't think it's enough credit in the fantasy football community. So continue. If you don't have Michael Pittman Jr. on your lineup, see if you can get him in a trade. I would not be mad at you if you maybe even sold high on a player that has been doing pretty well so far, and see if you can get him on your roster, because I think he's going to be solid. Let me see. Pittman is a god. Yeah, he is. Pittman had a good YouTube channel and on how to play football. Oh no, it's all good, man. Don't worry about it, dude. We're all family here. The one language that we share in common is fantasy football. So don't worry, Luke. We're all in this together. So whatever you need, I'm here to serve you. Just continue to hit that like button. Continue to share with all your friends and family, so that way this page can continue to grow. Because my thing is, just like I always say, building purposeful community through fantasy football is the mission of this channel. So with that does it for all the players I love going into the week. And now I'm opening it up to Q&A. And I had some Q&A questions actually I wanted to get from TikTok. And again, if you are just coming in, or if you are brand new, by all means, please hit that like on this video. It'd mean a lot to me, and as well as hit that subscribe button, just so that way you are always notified whenever I go live or whenever I post, because I do it once a week, and I also go live once a week, so that way you guys can get prepared for the upcoming games on Sunday. So let me go ahead and open up the Q&A real quick that I got from TikTok. And then of course, lastly, if you want more information on how you can follow me, go this way, right there. I'm at Ivan H __ as three underscores, and I'm at 100 Fantasy FB to follow the channel page. Here we go. On TikTok, we had a few questions coming through, so let me go ahead and pull them up. So let me pull up all right, here we go. So the Q&A I had was, okay, Q&A. Should I start Ryan Tannehill this week in week 6? So those of you that follow me know that I've been big on Ryan Tannehill. I thought he was one of those overlooked quarterbacks in the draft season. But, I mean, with the matchup that he's currently having this week, I'm not sold on it, especially because he still doesn't have all of his weapons there, and I still believe that the Tennessee Titans should heavily rely on Derrick Henry. So Ryan Tannehill is a fade for me in week number 6. You have better options. If you're looking for another better option, I would probably go with someone like I mentioned, Taylor Heineke, who's still available in a lot of leagues, or maybe even Joe Burrow if he's out there, and then maybe even Daniel Jones. He's been a top 10 quarterback so far in the season. So I would pivot from Ryan Tannehill in week number 6. Let me see. Do I start? Should I start Robert Woods? This is another one. Would you trade away Myles Gaskin and try to get a hold of Kareem Hunt? Yeah, you know what, you guys, and you know what's funny? This question is targeted at me directly because I was big on Myles Gaskin over the offseason, and it's rough because I believe that the Miami Dolphins may have cracked a code, especially with how Myles Gaskin exploded last week for 30 points, and I believe that formula shouldn't be actually one that should be changed. So I think that the Dolphins don't have much receiving talent outside of Jalen Waddle and maybe even Mike Gesicki, who's a tight end, but I would utilize Myles Gaskin more in the passing because he is such a talented receiving running back. But if I'm looking to trade Myles Gaskin, he could be one of those sell high guys depending on how he does in week 6. But if you're looking to sell high from what happened week 6 to get Kareem Hunt, I would do it just because Kareem Hunt, I would have mentioned him in the handcuff category there that I went over earlier, but the thing is, he was drafted really high, and it's because he's utilized really well in that Cleveland offense with Coach Stefanski. So, I mean, but if you can get a hold of Kareem Hunt, I mean, I think he's going to put up big yards this week in week number 6 versus the Arizona Cardinals. Will Urban be fired in the coming weeks, and how does that affect Trevor? You know what, Luke? That's so interesting. I never was a big fan of Urban Meyer, especially how we're seeing how he's utilizing a lot of his players. I'm still surprised that Laviska Shenault hasn't been utilized the way that he can be used, considering that he's one of those gadget players that can make a difference in so many different ways and can even take off pressure off Trevor Lawrence. And I'm just surprised that Urban Meyer hasn't tapped into that just yet. So that's something that I would definitely recommend the Jacksonville Jaguars really evaluate, especially because earlier on in the season they were utilizing a lot of Carlos Hyde, and that for me was a little bit surprising considering that we already knew what we had with James Robinson, who came out of nowhere last season. And I just think that Urban Meyer really isn't, I mean, I get it, Trevor Lawrence is the quarterback of the future, and that may buy him some time because they are trying to figure things out. But I mean, I don't know, I'm just not a big fan of Urban Meyer. And also, if you remember, I went over this video a couple weeks back, actually before the season started, about how I feel about quarterbacks, especially rookie quarterbacks that have been drafted in the first round. I think over the past 10 years or so, I forget the actual specific stat, but I'll put the video up here for you guys to look at later on after I finish this live. But on average, rookie quarterbacks that were drafted in the first round end up being quarterback 26 on the season. So Trevor really isn't someone that I'm being mindful of right now, especially if it's not a keeper league or if we're not playing Dynasty. I probably wouldn't have a Trevor on there. I mean, if I'm playing keepers, maybe, but I believe there's just there's just way better options at quarterback in those formats. So yeah, that's basically how I would cover that. Okay, next question is, how do you feel about Jonathan Taylor? He's been someone that's been exploding, or would you rather still go with someone like Cordell Patterson, who's been putting up touchdowns like crazy? That's a great question. So Jonathan Taylor, if my friend Daniel's watching this, he killed me last week. My friend Daniel in the 100 league, he was 4-0 and going into week 5, I was 3-1, and I was beating him by 18 points going into that Monday Night Football game. And he had Jonathan Taylor, and the first drive of the game, 75 yards and a touchdown. But you know what? Who cares? It's in the past now. I'm 3-2. He's 5-0. Still in second place, second highest scoring team in that league. But regardless, Jonathan Taylor. Anyways, but going back to the question, I believe that the Colts. I believe you should still continue to go with Jonathan Taylor. I get Cordell Patterson has been exploding. Actually, he killed me a couple weeks ago when he put up over 30 points in that matchup. But I mean, Cordell Patterson, I believe, is going to come down to earth, and I believe we should continue to trust Jonathan Taylor. I believe that the Colts offense, now that Carson Wentz is getting in a pretty good groove, especially after throwing 400 yards on the Monday Night Football game versus the Ravens, I think should be just fine. You should continue rolling out Jonathan Taylor. Don't play him over Cordell Patterson. But okay, cool. Oh, hold on. Tyler Conklin or Austin Hooper rest of season. Interesting. So for those of you that may not know, Tyler Conklin is the tight end for the Minnesota Vikings, and Austin Hooper is the tight end for the Cleveland Browns. And I would go with Conklin on this one. I mean, both aren't really great options. I mean, I'm struggling in tight end on one of my leagues. I have Robert Tonyan, and he's absolutely killing me. I'm looking to get Zach Ertz in the league, so hopefully that'll do well for the Cardinals as well as for that league for my roster construction as well. But all right, guys. Well, with that, that is the end of this stream. Hopefully, if you guys have any more questions, if you're on TikTok or even on Instagram, by all means, send them over. But I'll answer them live for you guys. I'll go live on Instagram. So Luke be sure to follow me once again. And I'm gonna just end this video now, just so I can get ready to cut this stream up, so that way it's cleaner than what Luke got to watch. And dude, I just want to say, man, thank you so much for watching. It really does mean a lot to me that you would be involved in the chat, that you would send over your questions. And I guess it's one person, but I do this regardless of who's on, because I love fantasy football. I love the community, and I love talking, and I love doing this. This is my way of getting just ready for my week that I have coming up for work. And then, but let me go ahead and get this outro going. So if you made it to the end of this video, thank you so much for watching. It means the world to me that you would do so. Be sure to like the video, subscribe, so that way you are always notified whenever I go live. Best of luck to you this weekend, and of course, as always, keep it 100.